Hi everyone, I'm Max from Postcard Mania, and this is the PCM Integrations How-To series. In this video, I'm going to be showing you how to make your first Sandbox order in the PCM Integrations Direct Mail API. For starters, it is recommended that you use the Chrome web browser. And moving from the PCM Integrations site, we're going to have you go to portal.pcmintegrations.com. Once there, you're going to want to log in with your email and password. If you don't have an account yet, there'll be a link in the description to the first video from the How-To series, how to set up your API account. This brings you to the overview or your dashboard. And from there, you're going to want to click on API keys. This is where you're going to get the crucial information that you need to log in to our API from whatever system you are working with. As you'll see, there are two options for API keys. One is the production key. This is the key you'll use to make live orders and to have a live connection to the direct mail API. For now though, we'll use the Sandbox key, which will allow you to test the API without placing actual orders for us to fulfill. Once you've copied the Sandbox key, open a new tab and go to the PCM Integrations homepage. From there, go back up to the top right of the screen and click View API Docs. If you have any questions about the functionality of the API, these API docs are going to be your go-to resource, particularly if your questions fall outside the scope of the How-To series videos. Next, I'm going to have you scroll to the left and click on Placing Your First Sandbox Order. You'll see that we've already completed part 1, retrieving your Sandbox API key. So I'm going to have you scroll down to part 2, logging in to the API. Throughout this whole process, we recommend using Postman to test the API. And so as you'll see here, you're going to make a post request to our authentication route. The request is there, you can copy it, and you're going to need your API key as well as your email and password to log in. Using those three variables, your response should look like this. You'll receive a token, an expiration date, and of course the refresh token. Now, you'll want to keep that token handy for the next step. So as you can see scrolling down, you'll use that token to generate an authorization header. And here's what it looks like in Postman. So now it's time to go back up to the Direct Mail API tab. And from here, you're going to want to click down on the left-hand side of the screen on Designs and Postcards. This page is really important. As you can see, it shows the different types of postcard templates we have available and on offer, and different formats as well. Feel free to explore this page and find the postcard that works for you, but I'm going to click on the details for the 4x6. And as you'll see, there's an extensive details page here that has the dimensions of the card, what the back looks like, and the potential variables you can offer, whether required or not. For this postcard, Design ID 2107, you have the back and the front of the card, which will be images that your customers will have to provide. These are required fields, so without them, you won't be able to send your order request. But I doubt you'd want a blank postcard anyway. Next, there are the return address fields, which are optional on this postcard. But your customers very well might want to include their return address on their postcard orders. Now that you have the basics of the postcard design, I'm going to have you click on Order JSON Example so you can see the details of your post request. As we dig into the details here, there are a few new things that I would like to go over with you. First, as you'll see at the very top of the post request, there is an external reference number. That is a number you provide for cataloging orders in your system, hence the external aspect of the external reference number. Next, there is the design ID. Because we're looking at design 2107, the design ID 2107 is included here. This is crucially important for building your post request because it lets our API know what kind of postcard your customers want to build and send out to their addresses. Next is mail class, which as you'll see is selected as first class, but other variables include standard, Canadian, and international. And then we have the global design variables, which are the variables that I just went over with you on the previous design page. As you can see, back card, company address with the value types, this is all there for you. And you'll see here also that this plugs into, at the bottom, the recipient list. So this is the list that your customers will provide. So for example, the first, last name of the person, their address, city, state, etc. I recommend copying all of this from your chosen design and using it to build your order request. Which, speaking of, we can now go back to the Placing Your First Sandbox Order tab. Here you'll want to slowly scroll through section 4, building the order request. We just discussed this in the design details page, all the variables and the JSON, and continue scrolling all the way through the Finding Your Test design, which we just did in Postcards. Remember, 2107 is our design ID. Here's that page again. And then we'll settle on 6, finishing the order request object. And as you can see here, your design ID here is crucially important. We also have some of the other variables and then the value put in of the image for back card and front card. You'll notice here that this value is a URL to an image hosted elsewhere. That is because our API does not host images natively. So you'll want to make sure you host your images elsewhere and then link to them. So scrolling down then a bit slightly, you'll see the recipient information or the recipient list array again. Now, of course, this information is going to be pulling from your customer's list. So you want to make sure to program that in order to seamlessly pull that information from that list and deliver it to our API. We'll scroll down more. There's specific variables that are optional. We'll continue scrolling down through this complete request object, which has all of the information you need to send your request, and we'll settle on creating your order. So there are a few crucial things we need to discuss here, including the batch ID, which can contain one or more orders. You'll also see here that there is an order ID, an order index, that external reference number that we talked about before, an array for errors, the successful recipient count, and any questions of failures that might come up with your order. You'll receive all this information in this response to your order. So now you've completed your first Sandbox order in PCM Integration's Direct Mail API. Next, you can move to using the Live Production API key and perhaps start to flesh out the particulars of what postcards and letters you might want to offer your customers through the Direct Mail API. Make sure you make use of the API docs. If you have any lingering questions, that would be the resource that could answer them. And on behalf of Postcard Mania, thanks so much for listening, and more soon.